Hi, Tracy Hugelmeyer here with VintagepreneurUniversity.com, where I help vintage sellers start, grow, and scale their business on Etsy. I also own my own vintage business, Rustic Eye, that I've had on Etsy since 2013. And I'm so excited to get started with another episode of Friday Feedback. If you're wondering how you can get your own free review, it's super simple. All you have to do is become an Etsy Junkie, and I show you how to do that in the comments below. Just come on over and join our free Facebook group or sign up for one of my free trainings, and you can just let me know, hey, I want to get my free review too, and then I'll add you to the list. And I'm definitely going to get to everybody because I do one of these every Friday, and there are 52 weeks in a year and endless years, right? So make sure that you come join us and request your free review too. And before we get started and I introduce you to this week's fabulous Friday feedback, I want to give a disclaimer that I always give when I give these reviews, and that is, make sure that no matter what feedback that you get, no matter what advice you get, that you always are very careful about making changes to your shop. Only make the changes that make sense to you and feel right for your business. I can only give you my advice, but it's up to you to make sure that you're doing the right things for your business, right? You make your own business decisions and never change everything all at once. Okay, I'm super excited to introduce you to Nicole with Carmella Vintage Love. So I'm going to go ahead and jump behind my screen and get started. Okay, so Nicole has been on Etsy since 2019, and I did go peek at her reviews, so I know that she's been around since at least February, but since then, she has had 121 sales, which is amazing for your very first year on Etsy. So that is so awesome, Nicole. And I also want to say that when I landed on your page, the first thing I thought was, you basically look like, your shop basically looks like it's out of a magazine. Your pictures, your photos are just really, really great. Your model pictures are amazing. It all just comes together so well. It literally looks like it could be a magazine spread. And I just wanted to compliment you on your photography, especially for a first year seller on Etsy, because you're just doing a really, really great job on that. And I think that's going to go a long way for you. And I think that it already has. In that you've had 121 sales your very first year on Etsy. So congratulations, and keep up the amazing job on your photography. Even though you're using lifestyle photos for a lot of your items, you do so in a way that clearly showcases your item, which is really working for you. So, I can tell right away by looking at these photos what it is that you're selling. And that's what's important for your first photo on Etsy. Number one, you want it to stand out, which it clearly does. And number two, you want it to be very clear what it is that you're selling so that somebody doesn't have to guess. Because people don't like to, put a lot of brain power when they're in a search. They just want to turn off their brain and either have fun or find what they're looking for right away. So if they have to work too hard and they don't know what it is they're looking at, they're just going to scroll past it. So again, great job on these photos. I'd say if anything, there's a couple in here that you might want to show a little bit more of the product. Like for example, this wallet. So we're seeing a lot of the detail, which is good for like a second or third or, some of the additional photos. But probably the first photo you want to show more of the complete product. And you do that really well, like in this photo here where you're showing the entire bag. So that would be my only advice to you, is any photo that you are kind of narrowing in on the detail rather than showing the full product, you might want to look at changing your first photo just on those. But otherwise, there's really not much that I can critique on your photos. They're just amazing. They're really, really good. And I think that on the same note, your brand is really, really strong because both the way that your photos fit together and also the coloring. So I'm picking up some very consistent coloring throughout your logo and your photos up here. It just all comes together really well. And then you're also, showing your face here, which I love. and always recommend. Now up here in your shop title, I see that you have vintage boho, unique clothing, accessories, and home decor. I'm definitely picking up a boho vibe in your shop as well. So I think you should play on that as much as possible with your brand, which I'm seeing that you're doing already, which is really, really good. Here, you might want to leave out unique just in this tag because you don't have a lot of space here. And then vintage unique clothing is a great general keyword for your shop. And then I would recommend that you come up with maybe one more keyword that's general to your shop one additional one that you can put here as well. So instead of just having generic accessories and home decor, maybe it's vintage boho clothing and vintage boho accessories, for example, so that you have two strong, and maybe if it's not boho, maybe it's, something else that you're bringing in with an additional keyword. But my point is you want 2 to 3 strong keywords that you can use in your shop title and then also place that in additional places in your shop. And that helps optimize for outside search engines like Google because it helps to tell them what it is that you offer in your shop. And then you could even consider putting this how you have it right now, the vintage boho unique clothing, accessories, and home decor. If that's your tagline, you might consider putting it in your banner up here somewhere so that people do see that when they first land on your shop, since you can't see this tag, or I'm sorry, this shop title when you are on your phone. So if you want that to stand out as, kind of prominently front and center when someone lands on your shop, whether it's in either on, a desktop computer or on your phone, on their phone, you can put it right in your shop banner. And that's a little bit a better place to do that. And it also frees up your shop title strictly to use for optimization purposes. It's kind of a funny one because it's such a short little place. But again, you put your primary shop keywords there and then repeat them in different places in your shop, like your announcement, right at the top of your announcement, and also right at the top of your about section. I'm going to come back to those because those are really cool too. Your item sections right here, the titles to your item sections are really strong because from an optimization perspective, because you're showing you're putting a searchable term there, like vintage suits. So you're optimizing that in doing so for the outside search engines like Google, which is really great. The one thing you want to avoid doing here, which you're not doing, but just for anybody else watching this, is you want to avoid using anything cutesy here. There's some places you can be cutesy and other places that you want to make sure that you're optimizing over being cutesy. So in other words, don't like space out your words. It looks really cool when you do that, but then it's not a searchable term and it's not optimized. So be cutesy in your brand and all the places in your design, all those places that you want to use your unique personality, do that. But when it comes to the places that you can optimize, make sure that you're doing that instead. Okay, and then your announcement, again, it's one place that you can use to optimize for outside search engines like Google. So you want to repeat those primary keyword phrases that we talked about above in your shop title. You want to repeat them in a natural way written for humans. Here, so you can say something like Carmella Vintage Love specializes in vintage boho unique clothing and vintage women's accessories, or whatever those 2 phrases are that you're using, 2 to 3, you want to repeat that. So repeat it in your announcement, and then same thing in your about section. That said, your about section is just so cool. I love everything about it, how you talk about your mother and how she inspired you. And this photo is just perfect. Even the way it's ripped and stapled back together, it just is perfect. Like I said, the only thing that I would change about this is just right at the beginning here, before you go into the rest of it, add that, that same phrase I just talked about that you should add in your announcement, what it is that you offer, using your broad keyword terms for your shop in a natural way written for humans. Okay? All right, so jumping down to your policies. So anyone who has followed me for any amount of time already knows my thoughts and feelings on accepting returns, exchanges, and cancellations. So I do have to say it, although every shop has to make that decision for themselves. And if you decide that that's what you want your policies to be, then that's what it's going to be, of course. But I do strongly believe that you should accept returns, exchanges, and cancellations, because whenever you can take a deterrent away from your shop, and it's not going to be a deterrent for everybody, but it will be a deterrent for some, then you can potentially increase your conversion rate and your sales. So think about that. Also, one thing to think about when you're deciding whether to accept returns, exchanges, or cancellations is think about, now you have almost a year of experience under your belt. So think about what you have had to deal with up until this point. Even though you have that in your policies, I'm sure you've had at least one person reach out to you and ask for a return or exchange or a cancellation. And so, how often was that? And is it worth perhaps changing your policies so that you can, deal with those in one-off situations, but also in the meantime, potentially increase your sales? So this is just the things that you want to ask yourself and weigh when you're deciding on what is the right decision for your business. Okay, and then on this unclaimed packages frequently asked questions, I'm betting that you probably added that because you had some situations come up, and I've had these same situations, so I totally get it. Where the item comes back, you ship it internationally. For some reason, this happens a lot for me when I ship or I don't want to say a lot, but most frequently, than any other country, it happens with the UK. So I ship from the US to the UK, and something will happen where they don't pay the customs fees, and then it gets returned to me. So have had this situation come up a few times, and I choose to handle it, as one-offs. So if it comes back to me, I reach out to my customer, and together we work through how to move forward with it. And it's different for each customer. So my point being that if you really feel strongly that that needs to be there, just try and word it as positively as you can. But you might want to consider taking it out and just handling them case by case. And it goes back to the same thing I was saying about having a deterrent, because for some people, this might come across as something that is a deterrent for them. They might take it as negative and decide, well, I don't want to deal with this situation should it happen, so I'm just not going to purchase the item. And I'm not saying that everybody will do that, but whenever like I mentioned, whenever you can take away a negative or a possible deterrent for people, it's sometimes often in your benefit to do so. So just take a look at that. And again, I challenge you to kind of think of how many times this has come up for you, and if it is better to leave it in because it does happen all the time, and you want to make sure that you feel strongly about that, and you want to make sure that it's handled in that way. And then by all means, if that's the case, then you'd want to leave it in. I also want to point out that right up here, you also are already saying buyers are responsible for any customs and import taxes that may apply. So it is already in your policies, and you can always go back to that if you need to there. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if it were me, I would take it out. But again, it's up to you because it's your business and your business decision. Okay, and before we go look at one of Nicole's items so we can review an item, I did want to mention that your reviews are looking awesome. I mean, you can tell pretty much right away when somebody isn't giving the love and attention to their shop and their customers as is necessary to be successful on Etsy, and you clearly are making a lot of people happy. A lot of people are saying how quickly you ship, which is a huge thing. That's going to go a long way for you. and that you give excellent customer service, and it was an excellent experience. So keep it up. That's going to go a long way for the success of your shop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and choose this vintage boho wicker basket to review. I think that I started right here with your item title. It's right on point. You've got vintage boho wicker basket, large geometric shape planter, handmade multicolor French decorator basket, antique woven basket. I mean, just so many great keyword long tail keyword phrases here. So there's really nothing that I can recommend here. You're covering so many different things. I'm wondering if I'm just going to jump down to your tags really quick so we can tackle those next, because I was wondering if bohemian is another search term that's common, and if so, maybe you want to have that in here as well. I also associate boho with farmhouse quite a bit. The two kind of go hand in hand. So you might want to make sure you have farmhouse as a tag for some of your decor your boho decor items, especially. Just a little tip there, something to think about. And you have a lot of great keywords in your tags too. The only comment I have here is you're repeating some of your things like basket quite a bit, which is not bad. It's just that if you have other things that you want to fit in here, you don't need to repeat basket so many times. So leave basket next to the things that, for example, are most likely to be searched for. And then if you have something else that you want to put, you can just combine some of these. So for example, you could put maybe large woven basket in one tag if that fits. And then you could, if you got rid of a couple of the tags, if you opened up space, maybe you could put planter decorator in one tag. Because you already have basket in your tags, Etsy will pick that up, as well outside search engines. But you just have to kind of balance it out, because an exact match could be more relevant in a search. So if somebody's searching, for example, for a woven basket and you don't have woven basket, but somebody else does, then it's possible that their item might be seen as more relevant and show up in a search specifically for woven basket over yours. But there are so many other factors too that go into a search. So that's not always the case. It's just one of the pieces of the big SEO puzzle. So basically what I'm trying to say is it's not a bad thing to repeat basket like you do, but if you need to free up more space for more keywords, you can do that by combining some of these and leaving out basket in some of the keywords. Okay, let's move on to your photos. So I already mentioned how amazing these photos are. It's really no different when I click on the rest of them. They're all really good. They show a lot of the detail and some of the, imperfections, as some people might call them. It shows all the different angles. This is the bottom. So, I mean, there's really nothing else that you need in these photos. If anything, you might show it staged a little bit. So maybe put a little plant in one of them. But that's totally optional. It's just an additional idea for you if you're running out of, what to show. It's always a good idea to include photos that show how it can be used, because that helps people envision it in their lives. But the way that you have it sitting on this table, in front of the couch in the living room there, I mean, that's kind of accomplishing the same thing. So you're really already doing that, which is great. And then we're moving over to your description. And I like how you have this kind of sectioned out. You have your condition note, your item, a note about item colors, your dimensions. I love how you include some of your keywords right in the beginning of your description. That is definitely advisable. And then also you give ideas on how it can be used for storage, as home decor, as a planner, which is also great because anytime you can help your customers see how it is they can use the item, that's always a great way to help convert and sell your items. I'm a little confused here, brown, orange, and green colors. Just kind of, I would bring that down a little bit, like maybe another section about the colors if you want to mention that separately. It just doesn't quite make sense the way you list it out at the end there. And then the only other thing, and I'm maybe a little bit against the grain here. And the reason I bring this up is because I do, as a vintage seller myself and being in the vintage seller community, I hear these types of things talked about a lot, like, pointing out that your items are vintage and pointing out colors. And it looks like these are things that you include in all of your listings. It's kind of like a static thing that you include in all of your listings. And in my opinion, you really don't need these because, I say it for a couple of reasons. One is in the amount of items that I've sold on Etsy, I've rarely had an issue with someone not knowing it was vintage or someone not being happy with the color. I mean, it's happened a couple times, sure, but it's definitely, in my opinion, has not been worth having to have some kind of warning against it. And I know that that's kind of a thing in the vintage community that people talk about, all the issues they've had, and it scares especially newer sellers into thinking they need to say, they need to point out that their items are vintage or that the colors might be different than what's on their monitor. But I really don't think that you need these. Again, it's going to serve more as a deterrent than anything else because the amount of times where you actually have an issue related to these is minuscule if you're doing all the other things that are making your vintage business awesome. So that might not be the popular school of thought, but that is my honest opinion based on, the amount of sales that I've had on Etsy and the amount of times that those things have actually been an issue for me, which have been almost never. Probably I could count them on one hand. And then I love that you're shipping in one business day, and that's not possible for everybody, but if you can ship in one business day, that is going to really help you, especially in the busy holiday season where people want their gifts and they want them now and they don't have time to wait. All right, so I'm going to link to Nicole's amazing shop. Definitely go check it out. Nicole, you should be so proud of your success to this point. You've done so well for a first-year Etsy shop. And like I said, your shop looks amazing. It definitely looks like a magazine spread. You've got some definite skills and talents. So keep it up. Keep up the great work. And for everyone else, if you'd like to get your own free review, check out how to do that in the notes below. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and also click the little bell so you get notified whenever a new video comes out. Thank you so much for joining me today and have a really great rest of your day. Bye.